Hi everyone, I'm Mark Harrison and this is A History of Rome. In today's special episode, we're going to take a look at the people who were probably the most influential on the early development of Rome, the Etruscans. Centred in the area we know as Etruria, the Etruscans exerted significant influence on the regions around them, most particularly the Celtic area to their north and south as far as the region of Campania. Their civilization has been dated back as far as 900 BC and was already an established regional power, whilst Rome was still an insignificant collection of small farming settlements. Initially, the Etruscans, as was common for that era, were a simple rural people with a warrior elite. Over time, however, under the influence of Greek culture to the south of Italy, they became increasingly sophisticated. At its lowest level, Etruscan society was built around the family unit, which was monogamous in nature, but it had a more liberal attitude to women than could be found in the more strictly patriarchal Greek or Roman societies by the 6th century BC. This was something that often prompted later Roman authors to comment on what they believed were the loose morals of Etruscan women. Despite covering a wide area, Etruria was not ruled by a single entity. Government was built around the city-state, with individual cities coming together at need to form leagues. It was a system similar to that practiced by the Greeks. And these city-states were originally ruled by absolute monarchies, but over time this governmental form began to shift to the more inclusive system of oligarchic democracy. This Hellenistic model was not confined to government. When conflict arose between the city-states, it was again very reminiscent of the Greeks. The soldiers' equipment was very much based on that of the Greek hoplite, with a fighting style Greek in nature. They followed a campaigning season with the objective being to capture land or to plunder it for resources and slaves. In religious matters, the Etruscans were polytheistic, with the belief that the divine power manifested itself in the world around them and that through human intervention this manifestation of power could be altered. The gods themselves were a mixture of Etruscan originals and imports, once again mostly of the Greek variety. And when it came to death, the deceased were treated with great reverence, the richest in society having elaborate tombs that were almost like houses, and this reflected the Etruscan belief that the fate of the dead was intrinsically linked to the treatment of the remains. Architecture and general construction also, unsurprisingly, followed the Greek lead. Though the Etruscans built mostly in wood and stone, the marble found in the area was only properly exploited under later Roman rule. They are known to have built roads and aqueducts, but with much less sophistication than the later Romans were to achieve. And for defence, the cities in which they dwelt were mostly built upon hilltops and defended by walls. The influence of the Greeks was also in Etruscan art, evidenced by the bronze sculptures, painted vases and frescoes that have survived to the present day. As I mentioned earlier, the Etruscans were an established regional power, whilst Rome was little more than a collection of farming settlements. It is therefore of little surprise that early Rome was dominated by them. Livy tells us that the last 3 kings of Rome were of Etruscan origin. This semi-legendary account certainly highlights the fact that the Romans had come under the dominance of the Etruscans around the 6th century BC. Although Rome would clearly have been under Etruscan influence well before this, it is likely that direct Etruscan rule accelerated the process of the Romans acquiring more advanced skills. Etruria was known to be rich in gold and copper, and the people who mined it had significant metalworking know-how, and this was passed on to the Romans, as indeed was the Etruscan skill in making pottery. When we think of Rome, however, we mostly think not of metalworking and pottery, but of military prowess, engineering skills, and the entertainment of the masses through their famed system of bread and circuses. Well, these too were inherited from the people of Etruria. Under Etruscan rule, Rome's military was transformed, once again on the Greek model, to a much more sophisticated and capable fighting force. It is significant that it was under Etruscan kings that the Romans came to dominate the Latins to the south and to make their greatest territorial expansions up to that time. Rome itself also benefited from Etruscan rule, with engineers and architects coming from Etruria using their knowledge and skills to help transform the city. It must be noted that the draining of the swamps, the construction of sewers and the completion of new city walls all came from this period, as indeed did the building of the temple to Jupiter Optimus Maximus and the construction of the first forum. In addition, it is also widely accepted that architectural techniques such as the vault and the arch came to Rome at this time. Another aspect of Roman society that was influenced by the Etruscans was religious practices, such as the haruspices, that is the idea of interpreting the will of the gods through studying the internal organs of sacrificed animals, or determining the meaning behind the way birds flew, or even observing the way chickens ate. But of everything that the Romans inherited from the Etruscans, probably the most quintessential was the practice of having men fight to the death in the arena. For the Etruscan city-states, this was an event that usually occurred during the funeral of a notable dignitary or ruler. Two men would fight to the death, with the blood of the loser being offered as a sacrifice to the gods, helping to ensure a positive outcome for the deceased in the afterlife. The Romans, however, would wholeheartedly embrace this form of combat and eventually turn it into the gladiatorial spectaculars of later centuries. In conclusion, it is safe to say that the influence of the Etruscans on the early development of Rome was immense. Without it, the Rome that we now know would have been quite different, perhaps nothing more than a footnote in history. We hope that you enjoyed this special on the Etruscans, and that you'll join us again for our next regular episode. And if you like our work, please help by subscribing, pressing the bell button and commenting. And we'll see you next time on A History of Rome.